A small, water-damaged notebook found in a dusty Argentine attic contains a single line that seems to contradict everything. We thought we knew about the final days of Josef Mengele. The entry, dated June 1979, describes a meeting in Buenos Aires, not with the Nazi sympathizers we expected, but with a former Mossad agent. I have spent years sifting through declassified files and obscure archives, trying to understand the man behind the myth. The deeper I went, the more the official story began to unravel. How did Josef Mengele, the angel of death of Auschwitz, evade capture for over 3 decades, and what was the true nature of his final years in South America? To understand Mengele, we must first go back to Auschwitz-Birkenau. It was here from 1943 to 1945 that SS Hauptsturmführer Josef Mengele earned his infamous moniker. He oversaw the selection process on the ramp, determining who would be sent to the gas chambers and who would be subjected to forced labor or his brutal medical experiments. His focus was on twins, dwarves, and people with physical deformities, driven by a twisted obsession with genetic purity and control. When the Soviet Red Army advanced in January 1945, Mengele fled, taking with him boxes of his research notes and human specimens. The trail seemingly went cold, but it had only just begun. The pursuit of him would become a decades-long international manhunt. The initial escape from Germany. For years, the prevailing theory held that Mengele simply disappeared into the chaotic aftermath of the war, living under various aliases with the help of a well-organized Nazi ratman. This is a fact. His first documented alias was Fritz Hallmann, a name he used while working as a farmhand in Bavaria. What is less known is that his own family provided critical support. A letter from his father, Karl Mengele, to a family friend in 1949 discusses arrangements for Josef's passage to a new life in South America. This wasn't a random disappearance. It was a coordinated operation by his own kin. The records tell a different story entirely about his first years abroad. His life in Argentina. We have long accepted that Mengele lived in relative anonymity, moving from Argentina to Paraguay and Brazil, a fugitive constantly on the run. This is partially true. What the historical record often obscures is the period of time when he was surprisingly public. The Argentine government under Juan Perón was openly sympathetic to ex-Nazis. It's a fact that Mengele registered his presence in Buenos Aires under his real name, Dr. Josef Mengele, in 1956. He even ran a medical clinic and was listed as a director of a German pharmaceutical company. This was not the life of a man in hiding, but of a man in plain sight, protected by a network of powerful allies. Then, in 1959, an arrest warrant was issued for him in West Germany. The Argentine government initially resisted, but as international pressure mounted, Mengele was forced back underground. The discovery of his remains and the lingering doubt. In 1985, a team of forensic scientists exhumed a body from a grave in Brazil, identified as Wolfgang Gerhard. The man had died by drowning in 1979. Forensic analysis of the skull, teeth, and skeletal structure led the team to conclude, with a high degree of certainty, that the remains were indeed those of Josef Mengele. It's a fact that the identity was confirmed by matching DNA samples from his son, Rolf Mengele, in 1992. The case was officially closed. However, a significant gap in the narrative remained. The man who had been so meticulous about his flight, so obsessed with his own survival, simply died of natural causes while swimming. It felt anticlimactic, almost too simple. It's a detail that has long fueled speculation and conspiracy theories. What if Mengele's death was not the end of the story, but the beginning of a different one? The official timeline suggests he lived in isolation in his final years, a paranoid and lonely man. But what if he was still involved in something far more clandestine? The notebook of Hans Ulrich Rudel. Found among the effects of the famous Luftwaffe pilot Hans Ulrich Rudel after his death in 1982. This small, leather-bound notebook contains a series of cryptic entries. The last entry, dated May 1979, simply reads, "Contact from the doctor." The project is active. The use of the term "the doctor" was a common nickname for Mengele among his inner circle. This entry was written just a month before Mengele's documented death. What project was he referring to? There is no further explanation. This stands in direct contradiction to the image of an elderly, solitary man. It suggests a final secret agenda was still in motion. The discovery of this notebook forces a complete re-examination of the evidence. For years, we viewed Mengele's last decade as a slow decay into obscurity. But the Rudel notebook, combined with the mysterious entry in the water-damaged diary found later, suggests a far more complex reality. The man wasn't just a fugitive. He was an asset, still engaged in some form of activity. This reframes the entire narrative, shifting it from a simple manhunt to a hidden, final operation. The official story is that the case ended with his death. The new evidence suggests his actions continued, and the full scope of them remains unknown. The most plausible explanation synthesizes these disparate facts. Mengele was not merely a passive fugitive. Supported by his family and powerful allies, he lived a relatively open life in Argentina before international pressure forced him underground again. Even then, he remained part of a network. The evidence, though fragmented, suggests that in his final years, he was still connected to a project, the nature of which is unconfirmed. While his remains have been scientifically identified, the motive and context of his death and the purpose of his final activities remain shrouded in secrecy. He was not just on the run. He was likely still active in some capacity. This provisional conclusion challenges the finality of the official record. Still unknown is the precise nature of the project mentioned in the Rudel notebook. We have no confirmed details about the alleged meeting with the Mossad agent in the Argentine diary, only the tantalizing reference. And the full extent of the support he received from former Nazi circles in South America has never been fully mapped, as many records remain sealed or were intentionally destroyed. The story of Josef Mengele matters because it is a stark reminder of the enduring nature of impunity and the persistence of extremist ideologies. The fact that he lived freely for so long, protected by a network of sympathizers, highlights the failures of post-war justice. His ability to evade capture for decades has also fueled a cottage industry of conspiracy theories, from cloning experiments to secret research on twins, which continue to distort the historical record. This legacy of evasion continues to haunt the families of his victims. The search for justice for him, though ultimately resolved by his death, stands as a testament to the unyielding pursuit of accountability by individuals like Simon Wiesenthal. But there is one final unsettling question. The same day the Argentine diary entry was made, a second, more cryptic note was written on the following page. It speaks of a package delivered to an unlisted address in Paraguay. What was this package, and who was the intended recipient? The investigation continues. To explore this unresolved lead further and trace the final hidden steps of Josef Mengele, subscribe and turn on notifications. The truth may be closer than we think.